Shalom. First off, give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem, Rakar Kadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of the GMS, salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, the women, the children, the confusion, the faiths who follow. So as you can see, I wanted to do this lesson over Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the statue, which represents the many kingdoms from that time, from the time of Daniel, the Babylonian kingdom, to here and now. So, Lord's will, this is an edifying video. And with that said, we're going to jump right into it. This is Daniel's chapter 2 and verse 31. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image head was of fine gold. And this, speaking of the Babylonian kingdom. And the Babylonian kingdom is gold because it was just that. It was the gold standard of, all time. Like in the Olympics, you get the gold, the silver, or the bronze. Gold is first place. All right, so that's why the Babylonian kingdom was gold. All right, it's number one all time as far as beauty, way of life, I guess you would say. But nothing's gonna be compared to our kingdom, of course. But we'll get to that. But as far as on this side, the Babylon. When you look up Babylon and you see like old pictures of like the Hanging Gardens and its beauty is unmatched from everything that you can find in text. Okay, his breasts and his arms of silver. All right, that's speaking of the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, the ones who took down the Babylonian Empire. All right, and silver, a lesser metal, but still, is pretty high up there. Second place ain't no reason to be ashamed for second. And his belly and his thighs of brass. Speaking about the Greeks, Alexander the Greek took down the Medo-Persian Empire, and that's where you get the brass. All right, verse 33, his legs of iron. And now iron isn't really a precious metal, but it's one of the toughest metals, and that's why it represents the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire they really excelled in using iron weapons to control the world. All right, and its military might was the strongest out of all the the diverse elements in the statue. All right, it says, and his feet part iron and part of clay, because that's speaking of the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, which is NATO and the EU. Speaking of it being partly strong and partly weak. All right, and okay, so I have an article here from BBC.com. And it's from June of 2012, so it's a while ago. But it's speaking of it's called the timeline, the unfolding of the Eurozone crisis. So this is that partly strong and partly weak. All right, I'm not gonna go through everything. It's a lot in here to unpack. I will have the link in the description if you want to go through it. But it starts at the beginning. In 1999, on January 1st, the currency officially comes into existence. Speaking of the euro. All right, then in 2001, Greece joins the euro, and so on and so forth. We're gonna fast forward all the way to 2010. All right, it says in January, an EU report condemns severe irregularities, kicking my ass, in Greek accounting procedures. Greece's budget deficit in 2009 is revised upwards to 12.7% from 3.7%, and more than 4 times the maximum allowed by EU rules. So basically, they weren't counting their money right. All right, their books wasn't matching correctly. All right, so they had to redo their books, and they weren't doing so well. Jumping down, it says concerns start to build about all the heavy indebted countries in Europe: Portugal, Ireland, Greece, Spain. Which is what? It's pigs. It's missing one. There's another I. Portugal, Italy. Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. That's pigs. The pigs nations are the ones, they're basically the miry clay. They are the ones who are weak. Then you have the other nations like Britain, you have France and Germany, just to name a couple, that were really strong and self-sufficient. So the thing about the EU, Europe is a continent with different countries within it. But when they came through, or when they came together to make this this one confederation, it allowed people to freely travel from one country to another and use the same currency, in one country to another. Okay, so when these countries start, going through it and not being able to manage their money, they had to do what? They had to start asking for bailouts, and that's where you get these austerity measures. So let's get that. This is Europe adopted austerity measures after 2008 crisis. It says cutting government fiscal stimulus spending. That's not what I want. Here we go. All right, so what are some of the examples of austerity measures? It says limit the terms of unemployment benefits, extend the eligibility extend the eligibility age for retirement and health care benefits, reduce government employees' wage and benefits and hours, cut programs for the poor. So that's terrible for any country, for any economy to have to go through that. All right, the poor people who are already on the bottom, they're getting the short end of the stick. Government employees, you might be, a government employee for 15, 20 years, and you're used to making, X amount of money. But when those austerity measures came, hey, look, we got to take away your benefits. We got to cut you down from here to here. And not only that, we got to cut your hours too. So you may have been, making, let's say you were making $25 an hour, to go for a nice round number, 40 hours a week. Or maybe you're working 60 hours a week, you're getting good overtime. Now they're going to cut you down to, you can't work no overtime, you're getting 40 only, and now that 25 is down to 20. That's going to make a big difference in your life. So not only were, the little guys feeling this, everyone else was feeling this as well. Okay, going back to the article, fast forward to, let's go to 2012. Let's go to 2011 because it's some heat in here. On January 1st, Estonia joins the euro, taking the number of countries with the single currency to 17. In February, the Eurozone finance ministers set up a permanent bailout fund called the European Stability mechanism worth about 500 billion euros. Okay, so if anybody needs help, we got this treasure trove of 500 billion euros to help any country that needs assistance. In April, forgive me, I'm kind of sick, but I'm trying to, fight through this. But it says in April, Portugal admits it cannot deal with its own finances itself and asks the EU for help. In May, the Eurozone and the IMF approved a 78 billion euro bailout for Portugal. In June, the Eurozone ministers say Greece must impose new austerity measures before it can get the next tranche of its loan, without which the country will probably default on its enormous debts. So, and then that's when talks about the euro. It's like it talks abounds that Greece will be forced to become the first country to leave the Eurozone. So Greece was in such a bad cause that it was going to get kicked out of the Eurozone. And if you remember, or at least I remember around that time, Greece had to start selling off a lot of its like historical landmarks. You know, all those Roman or Greek, I guess you would say, those Greek landmarks. I can't remember what it's called. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, the Acropolis. That's what it is. And let me see if I can. Okay, so in July, the Greek parliament votes in favor of a fresh round of drastic austerity measures. The EU approves that the latest tranche of the Greek loan worth 12 billion euros. A second bailout for Greece is agreed. The Eurozone agrees to a comprehensive 109 billion euro package designed to resolve the Greek crisis and prevent contagion among other European economies. And it goes on and on. Spain, it's too much to read all of this. And like I said, that's just 2011. So in 2012, on January 13th, the credit rating agency Standard & Poor's downgrades France and 8 other Eurozone countries, blaming the failure of the Eurozone leaders to deal with the debt crisis. So now everybody is, going through it, which is why you had what's called the Brexit. That's when the British exited the EU. The euro, should I say? They totally removed themselves from it so that they could basically preserve their economy from from failing like the other ones. Okay, so let me see. Let's get back to the scripture. So now that we have a good concrete understanding of the partly strong and a partly weak, let's go to verse 34. It says, "Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out." Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and break them into pieces. All right, and that's speaking about Yahweh Shai. This is Psalms 118 and 22. It says, let's start at 21. Psalms 118 and 21 says, I will praise thee, for thou hast heard me, and are become my salvation. The stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. All right, so that headstone of the corner, the stone which the builders refused, is that same stone that we're reading of here in the 34th verse. All right, that stone that was kept without hands. It says that which smote the image on, or yeah, that which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and break them into pieces. So, if you can imagine, this stone is. So if you can imagine, this stone, being forced down upon the already half weak and half strong, it's gonna completely obliterate everything. The statue is gonna fall. All right, and the feet being the end of the statue, speaking of the end of times, because this is what the statue is compiled of kingdoms and times. So Yahweh Shai is going to be the end of all these kingdoms and all these times. All right. Going into verse 35 says, "Then was the iron and the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken into pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floor, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth." And that's talking about our kingdom, all right, the kingdom of the Israelites, the Negroes, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, it says it filled the whole earth, and that great mountain is a great mountain is speaking of a government. All right, that's going to be us in our rulership. Okay. Let's get this. This is Daniel chapter 7, and I'll start at verse 9. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, and his wheels as a burning fire. Speaking of the Most High. All right, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands and thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were open. All right, so it said the judgment is set, and the books are open. So this is the time of judgment. And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even then till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. Speaking of the destruction of America. All right, and it speaks about the beast. So let's go into the beast real quick. All right, so this is Revelation 13:1. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up from out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy." All right, so that those the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns is NATO in the EU. All right, so when you go into those 7 heads, you have Germania Major, the Romans, the French, Spanish, Germania Minor, the British, and the Greeks. All right, and America is that whore that is riding on the on the beast. All right, so going back into Daniel chapter 7, I'll read verse 11 again. It says, "And I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame." And again, that's speaking about the destruction of America by thermonuclear, missiles. Verse 12, "As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time." So that's speaking about in our kingdom, we're gonna have them in slavery. That's their dominion being taken away. Why? Because we're gonna have dominion over them. They're gonna be subject unto us. All right, in verse 13, "I saw in the night's vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all the people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. All right, that's Yahushai's kingdom. That's what's the result of, that block, that stone, crushing the feet. Because all these other nations, we still have the modern Babylonians are Americans. Okay, the modern Persians are Iranians. We still have Greeks. We still have Romans. The modern day Romans, you could say, the Italians, but the modern day Romans are Americans. Okay, so you still have all these people existing, and all that were of these kingdoms. And guess what? When it's our time to rule, we're going to be in charge. They're going to be subject unto us. Okay. Is that it? Yeah, that's really all I wanted to go over. Lord's will, this was edifying. And with that being said, we give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushai, by Hashem Karkadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, the women, the children, the confusion, the faith who follow. Shalom.